Gonna get started. So yesterday, we were in the first 5 days of the Roosevelt administration. Congress is ready to jump on anything, start passing legislation. They passed the Emergency Banking Act, which creates a bank holiday. Not just one day, it could be a week, could be a month, could be months. We talked about the constitutionality of this. Obviously, the federal government does not have that power to do this, but they did it anyways. We were in a crisis. People wanted the banks fixed, okay? So Morgenthau, the Secretary of Treasury, is put in charge of this, okay? He can reopen these banks when he sees fit. So an examination of the banks showed that most of them, remember, 9,000 had gone under. So a lot of the banks that were in trouble had already gone out of business. Okay, so of the remaining, about 80% of them were in good condition. Okay, the government started sending money out to banks, lowering interest rates. Okay, and then by midsummer, 94% of the banks that were shut down was reopened. Okay, people began to trust the banks a little bit more, especially with the passage of the Glass-Steagall Act. Okay, the Glass-Steagall Act creates the FDIC, which is our first acronym of the New Deal. Okay, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation is going to insure your money in the bank up to $5,000. So if your bank goes under, like the 9,000 that did, the federal government is insuring your deposits up to that $5,000 mark. Today, that number is what? How much does it insure your money in a bank, the FDIC? Any of you guys work at a bank? Do any banking, walk into a bank, see this FDIC thing? It says at the bottom, or over here, this says $100,000. Today, it's $250,000. So if any of you have the unfortunate problem of having more than $250,000 to put in the bank, you would want to put it in different banks. Does that make sense? And if that is an issue for any of you, see me after class if you want to talk about your test score. Okay. Now, this will prevent runs on banks, okay? Because people are not going to freak out because they know their money is backed up, okay? So we don't tend to see these types of situations any longer because of the FDIC. Good? And so people have confidence. They start, taking the money from underneath their mattresses or in holes in the backyard or the attic, wherever they're hiding their cash, and they put it back in the banks. Some people like to store their cash in the freezer among the food. Hence the term cold, hard cash. Are you ready? All right. Guys, you ready to do some economics? Yeah. Yeah. This is as close as I could get to the color. Okay. We've got an issue. Deflation, the currency crisis. We've got a problem. This is not good. As the depression sets in, we're going to get deflation. Okay, now everybody's heard of inflation, probably heard of deflation, but let's try and get a better understanding of it. Okay, so wages, prices, and demand. So during times of deflation, Guys, this is worse than inflation for us, for the American people. Okay? Under deflation, all of these go down. Wages go down, prices go down, demand goes down. Okay? So in times of inflation that we are living in right now, which is also not so good, okay, you see the reverse here. Okay? These are all economic indicators of inflation and deflation. With me? Now, the one thing that is majorly different between these two is this. The value of the dollar. So during times of inflation, what happens to the value of the dollar? We know this, right? You can buy less with the dollars that we have. During times of deflation, the value of the dollar increases. And this is bad. You're like, Mr. Ebron, why is this bad? If our money is worth more, isn't that a good thing? Well, when the dollar is strong, it does make it easier for you to buy goods internationally. So if the dollar is standing up strong to the Chinese yuan, you can buy more with the dollar. Okay? And right now that's the case, guys. The US dollar is strong versus other currencies in the world. Okay, even though we are going through inflation. So buying buying imports is happening right now. This year, our trade deficit with the world has risen to $968 billion, which is up $200 billion since the year 2000. Our trade deficit with China is over $500 billion. So you add China and the rest of the world in, we are buying almost $1 trillion more goods a year from the rest of the world than the rest of the world is buying from us. One of the big reasons is the strength of the US dollar versus other currencies. Now, within the United States, it's different. The value of the dollar in the United States for the things you buy here is going down. Demand is up. The economy is fairly strong. Prices we know are going up. Yes? Wages are going up. Yes? They are. Okay? Now, are wages keeping pace with inflation? No, that's the unfortunate part. Okay? So everything is costing more. Demand is high, which means prices go up too. Okay? Demand for fuel, okay, is up. Energy, up. Education, up. Okay? So, why is deflation worse than inflation? And here's the reason. If you go to the bank and borrow these dollars, you want to buy a new house, okay? Buy that house, you get a mortgage. Say you borrow $100,000. Okay. With inflation, say I borrow this 100,000 of these, and I'm going to pay it back to the bank. If there is inflation, the money I'm paying back to the bank has less value than when I borrowed it. Wages wages are up, which means it's easier for me to get my hands on these dollars, making it easier for me to pay debts when there's inflation. When there's deflation, if I borrow 100,000 of these, and the value of the dollars that I borrowed increases, every dollar I pay back to the bank has more value than when I borrowed it. Wages are down, which means it's harder for me to get my fingers on this money to pay it back. And it has more value than when I borrowed it. And guys, by the 1930s, we talked about how people borrow money for cars. You know, put $10 down, pay a monthly fee. So everything you're paying back has more value than when you borrowed it under deflationary circumstances. Everybody with me? So what is the optimal thing for the United States as far as inflation and deflation? A slow growth of inflation. Like 1 or 2% inflation, guys, we can handle. Okay? It's good because we still borrow a lot of money. So the money you're paying back has less value when you borrow it. That's good for the American consumer, the American borrower. It's not so high that banks take a huge hit. Okay? But deflation, guys, is devastating for the United States because we owe so much money. You guys staying with me on this? Now, there's a problem. If we're in a deflationary period, how do we get out of it? By printing money. Lots of it, right? That's how we're in the boat we're in right now, is because we printed so much money. There's a problem in the 1930s, though. In 1932, the United States backs up every one of these with what? Gold. We're on the gold standard. Now, let me show you something. Okay, I'm bringing this down now. Every dollar is backed by gold. So, Congress is going to pass the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. And if you possess any of these coins, you have to turn them back into the bank. It is illegal to possess these gold coins. Now, here I have quarter eagle, double eagle, or half eagles. So a quarter eagle is worth $22.50, half eagle worth $5, and golden eagle worth $10, and a double eagle worth $20. Now, gentlemen, any of you guys carrying around coins in your pockets right now? You like to carry around change in your pockets? Nobody likes to do that. So instead, ladies, you guys like carrying a purse? Do you guys have a purse with you right now? Where's your purse? Ladies, where's your purse? My wife has a purse. Where's your purse? It's at home. Where's your wallet? Huh? It's in your backpack? You got some coins in that wallet? Got a little change purse in there? Yeah. Gets heavy, doesn't it? So instead of carrying around those coins, carry around these. These are gold certificates. So you can exchange. It's got grand on it. It's the 50. Say right here at the top says gold certificate. Gold certificate. So you can go to the bank, take one of these gold certificates, and get you 2 double eagles and an eagle. It's worth gold. Actual gold. The government's going to make sure that everybody turns in all these gold coins and all these gold certificates. The government is going to stockpile gold and go off the gold standard so it can print these. Now, if you look at the very top of your dollars, of your money, it says Federal Reserve Note. Okay? So you turn in your gold coins and you get these instead. Now, how much gold is going to back up these dollars? Well, in the beginning, they're going to set it at 59.06 cents per dollar. This is going to allow the government to print more money than they have in gold to back it up. Now, it goes from 59 cents to 50 cents to what today? Is our money backed up by gold today? No. Lily has long hair. So if I took one of her hairs and ripped it out of her head, could I buy that much gold? No. No. Mr. Ebright has really short hair. But if I ripped out one of my hairs, could I buy that much gold with $1? Okay. Today, our money is not backed up by any amount of gold. Okay. What's backing up our money? Say that again. Just our faith in our economy. You know? It's kind of sad. Okay? So, I think I explained that pretty good, but let me put the notes up and see if I need to re-explain this. Okay? So, to create inflation, you print more money. You get prices to go up. That's good for farmers. Good for the textile industry. Wages go up. Easier to get your hands on dollars so you can spend it. So we're going to modify the gold standard. Every dollar would still be backed by some amount of gold. People are ordered to return their gold coins and gold certificates. So guys, if you own a gold coin, if you have one in your possession that was minted prior to 1933, you are breaking the law. Do not try to sell those in this country. In return, you get Federal Reserve notes or dollars in exchange, and debts could be paid dollar for dollar in any legal currency. Okay? Now, this helps people. Who does it hurt? Who loaned you this money at a certain value? Well, the banks. The government's the ones passing the law, but the banks. So you signed a contract with the bank to pay back this amount of money. Now the money you're paying back is worth half of what it was worth. So this is like changing the rules of the game in the middle of the game. Don't you love that, right? I'm losing, so I'm going to take my ball and I'm going home. So the Gold Reserve Act of 1934 is what institutes this. The president was given the power to reduce the backing of gold up to 50%. They fixed it at 59.06. Obviously, from there, it would continue to go down. We would print more and more money. Okay. What does this do for the average American? A lot. Your wages are going to go up. It's going to provide more money for people to spend. It's going to raise prices at home, which is going to help our manufacturers, our farmers, small businesses. This is a big one. It's going to boost exports. Remember how I said the strength of the US dollar helps us buy goods overseas when the dollar has more value. Guys, when the dollar has less value, it's cheaper for other countries to buy our goods. It's going to boost exports. And guys, China does this all the time, by the way. They will artificially deflate the Chinese yuan, their currency. So it's cheaper for other people to buy their stuff. Now, artificially, it would be against, practices of business. Do the Chinese care about being on the up and up? No. But the biggest thing this did for the American people at the time was decrease the burden of debt, making it easier for people to pay off their loans, to keep a roof over their head, to pay the mortgage, to make the car payment. Okay? So this went over very well with people that were in debt. But the bondholders, the creditors, the ones that loaned the money, referred to this as legalized robbery, which in essence is what it is. Now, I've heard of people like Ron Paul talk about going back to the gold standard. Holy crap. That would be so difficult to do. I mean, each one of these would be worth like, I don't know, $1,000. Every dollar would be worth a lot of money if you went back to the gold standard. And again, we would have to stockpile as much gold as we could to do this. Okay? Everything would be crazy expensive. You guys understand that? Did I do a pretty good job explaining this to you? How we went off the gold standard, were able to create inflation. Okay. And we have to learn from this, I mean? Like, I've been doing this for a long time. And guys, we haven't had this high of inflation in 40 years. Okay, we went through this in the late 70s and early 80s. Okay, so how do you slow down inflation? You raise what? Interest rates. Okay, this is how, so when you print this money, how do you get it into people's hands? So you're printing all this cash. How do you get it out there to the population? How do you get it in circulation? You could do some public works, government projects, put people to work, the government paying salaries. Okay, that's one way. But normally this way is done through the banks, through lending. So the Federal Reserve sets the interest rates. Okay, so guys, since 2008, 2009, you could get a 30-year mortgage in this country for 3% interest, guys. So the Federal Reserve is charging the banks like 1.5% to borrow money from the government. So banks are going to borrow that money and they're going to loan it out to you at a cheap interest rate. We just talked about it. It's like, if you can make 6% in the stock market, why would you not borrow money at 3% and invest it in the stock market and make money off of cheap money that you're getting from the banks, from the government? Guys, in Japan, in 2010, 2011, They had 0% interest and then went negative interest rates in Japan. They're literally paying people, here's $100,000, we're going to give you $110,000. You're only going to have to pay back $100,000. It's negative interest rates. Literally trying to get the economy moving so people will borrow that money and pay it back. And then they'll spend it. They'll start a new business or grow their business. Businesses love this cheap money. The stock market loves this cheap money. So when we printed all this money since 2009, guys, we've been doing it. Look at the national debt since 2009. We've been printing. It's called quantitative easing. Okay? Cheap interest rates, print money. $50 billion a month, every month. We were doing this. And then COVID hit. And we just went freaking nuts with it. Talking like $6 trillion in a 3-year span, which resulted in 40-year high inflation. So how do you curb that? You raise interest rates. So if a 30-year mortgage is now 7%, who's borrowing money for that? This is not a great time to buy a house. So you have fewer people building houses, even though there's extremely high demand for housing. Look at rental prices in this country. Freaking crazy. You better have some roommates. Okay? So fewer businesses are going to borrow money, okay? Which means there's going to be less money going out into circulation. It's going to make it harder to get your hands on it. So demand should drop. It's just not yet. So every quarter, the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jay Powell, has been raising these by a quarter point, a half a point, a quarter point. Now, over the last few months, inflation is still going on, but it has slowed down. Okay, from its height about a year ago, right? So it's working. But they want to get inflation down to like 3% before they stop raising interest rates. Okay? So if they get inflation down to 3%, they'll start lowering interest rates slowly. And then what happens? The economy speeds up. The weird thing that's going on right now, and guys, I listen to the freaking business radio every day. The weird thing that's going on right now is the unemployment. It keeps going down. They're trying to slow down inflation, slow down the economy, but people are still hiring and paying more wages. Okay, so the Federal Reserve Board chairman is like, I got to keep raising interest rates. Okay, and that affects the stock market. And eventually they're going to try and get us to slow down, almost go into a recession so that we can get out of this inflation. Okay, it's a weird one. Okay, this is a weird thing. Like in the 70s and early 80s, we had high inflation, high interest rates, high unemployment. Okay, things were bad. My parents, 1976, paid 13.5% interest on a $100,000 loan. It nearly bankrupted my parents. I had some saving bonds that my grandma had given me. My sister had some, that we could hang on to till we grew up. Those got used by my parents. Like they were hurt. Okay. So we kind of have to shoot ourselves in the foot by raising interest rates to bring inflation under control. Okay. But demand is not cooperating. for jobs, you know, I mean, still a good time to look for a job. Okay. Now, most economists are predicting a recession sometime in 2023 because of these interest rates. Okay. But the economy's not agreeing with it. It's just not agreeing with it. So I would see interest rates continue to tick up. I don't know where that ends. Certainly I don't think we're going to get here. Okay. But somewhere maybe around 9%, that will slow the economy down enough to bring inflation under control. I don't know where it is. But every 3 months, they make this decision whether to raise interest rates or not. Yeah.
So is the goal sort of for us to go into a recession?
Yeah. To create a slowdown. Yeah. So what is a recession? So when you have negative GDP, gross domestic product, and it's just not working. So like we were at not this quarter, but the previous quarter, we were almost at 4% growth, which is pretty high for us in the United States. It's really good. Okay. I think we were at 2.3 GDP last quarter, maybe 2.6. Don't quote me. 3 quarters of a year, there's 4 quarters a year, 3 consecutive quarters of negative growth means a recession. And we had some of that last year where we had 2 quarters because inflation went up like 10%. We had 2 quarters, I think, maybe even 3 of negative growth. Some people said we're in a recession, but unemployment, guys, is at like 3.5%. Which is really full employment, guys. Anytime you get under 4% of unemployment, you're at full employment in this. Anybody that wants a job can find a job. So it's a strange one. It's a strange economy right now. And a lot of that has to do with, coming out of COVID, fully coming out of COVID. Okay, travel. I mean, look at the frickin' cruise lines. I mean, they're packed. People are tired of being home. They're going on vacation. So you see airline tickets, airline travel's way up. Okay. So the economy's just not wanting to slow down. We're not wanting to slow down. Now, guys, there's a lot of people that are suffering because of this inflation. You know who it affects. It affects the poor. Inflation is a tax on the poor. Okay, my wife and I can afford this inflation. Some of your families can afford this inflation. Okay, and don't have to change their buying habits. There are a lot of people in this country that are suffering because of the inflation. Okay, those with good jobs, they're feeling the pinch for sure. Okay, but it's not enough to put us in a recession at this point. Okay, people are still spending. All right. Okay. All right. Giving you what I got. All right. So let me show you this story. Oh, God. This is this article. So remember I said if you have these coins, don't sell them in the United States. So this family, their grandfather died. He had a safe deposit box. They went in the safe deposit box and they found 10 of these coins. 10 of the rarest, most valuable coins in the world were almost certainly stolen from the Federal Mint in Philadelphia by their grandfather. Therefore belonged to the U.S. government, not the heirs of the coin dealer who found them in his safe deposit box at federal judge rule. Okay, these Augustus St. Gaudens double eagle 20 pieces were some about 445,000 struck during the Great Depression, but nearly all were pulled out of circulation. Okay, one of the surviving coins fell into the hands of King Farouk of Egypt. It sold for more than 7.5 million. One of these coins. They had 10 of them. They took them to the U.S. Mint to find out about them. The U.S. Mint confiscated them, and they went to court to get them back, and they lost. $80 million worth of coin. So what's the moral of the story here? If you find one, if you know somebody in Mexico or Canada, somewhere else, say, look, I'll give you 10% if you make up this story about how this coin was given to my great-grandfather years ago, and I'm going to put it up for auction. I'll give you 10%. And then you can get your millions. All right? Now, the gold certificates were not all destroyed. So you can possess these today, okay, as collector items. Okay? So you can find some of these in like coin shops and stuff like that, these gold certificates. 1964, they ended the restriction on these. And I saw one of these on Pawn Stars. You guys watch Pawn Stars, they have green stuff in like that. Right? Guys. All right. What time do we get out? 45? Oh, we're out of time? All right. We'll move on to the New Deal tomorrow.